Hello, my name is Marna, and thank you for watching my project presentation for Module 8. For the sake of clarity and context, I will mention again that even though I consider myself an educator, I do not work in the education system. I am the leader of our church's disability ministry, and I focus my running project on a problem I feel very passionate about. I will start this presentation by sharing information to underscore the problem. We will briefly review the historic context, relevant statistics to help build a case for why disability ministries are so important. I will briefly share some solutions and end the presentation with closing comments. In a national study conducted by Eric Carter, 11% of evangelical churches in the United States are doing disability ministry and even able to welcome families with special needs. This is a quote from Dr. Stephen Nansley, a fellow disability ministry leader here in the Kansas City area. He continues to say that out of the 111 churches or so that he has interacted with over the past decade in the greater Kansas City area, only 23 of those churches are currently serving individuals with disabilities and their families. In an article titled "Let No Special Need Hinder the Spread of the Gospel" by Sarah Zylstra in 2014, she estimates that 80 to 85% of churches don't have any level of disability ministry. These numbers may or may not be supported by data from formal research studies, but I'm sharing this as an introduction to underscore the problem that I've identified. That is, there is only a limited number of churches in the nation that offer ministry opportunities to individuals with disabilities. I can't help but wonder, what if the above statistics were related to schools? What if only 11% of the schools in the United States were able to provide education to students with disabilities? Would that be acceptable? If not, why should this data be acceptable for churches? The existence of disability ministries is not new. Unlike the evolution of special education that was highly driven by the government and the legislation and has a clear path as it developed throughout our history, the initiation of disability ministries was and still is very much dependent on the need of the community and the willingness of churches to give it a try. For Amy Fenton Lee, she wrote in her book, Leading a Special Needs Ministry, and I quote, "Churches are not held to the laws IDEA sets forth for public agencies and schools. However," and she continues, "parents' expectations for their child's placement and experience inside the church are often changed by the practices inside the public school system. So it is therefore the church's responsibility to recognize parents' needs for opportunities for their children in the church." Although many studies on disability ministry have been conducted over the years, very few, and none that I could locate, cite historic or current statistics on the number of churches across the nation versus the number of churches providing services for children with disabilities and their families. However, the percentages already cited in the previous slide show that much work needs to be done to make disability ministries in churches as common as special education services in schools and school districts. Let's look at some relevant statistics on individuals living with disabilities in the United States. According to the CDC, 61 million adults in the United States live with a disability. Nearly 1 in 6 children has a developmental disability, and this statistic comes from an article written by Dr. Stephen Grisovich. Based on US Census data from 2019, almost 3 million people fall into the total civilian, non-institutionalized population category. And see more statistics on this slide from 2013 as published by this Inclusive Church. Understanding the need is the first step in being part of the solution. One might ask, why do we need churches to serve individuals with disabilities? Are individuals with disabilities even religious? Would these individuals attend church if they could? So the bar graphs on this slide were created from data collected on the study on the religiosity of persons with disabilities and released in an article by Disability Studies Quarterly in the fall of 2006. The data revealed that, and I quote Hendershot, the author of this article, persons with disabilities are 40% more likely than those without disabilities to report that they never attend worship, and 28% more likely to say that religion is not important in their lives. But more importantly, he continues to say that earlier studies found that it is as a result of barriers to participation. It is argued that persons with disabilities are as inherently religious as other persons, but they are less able to attend worship because of architectural, communication, or attitudinal barriers. These are very simple, data-driven, unemotional arguments why churches have the responsibility to serve in any capacity individuals with disabilities and their families. But in addition to using data to guide us, there are several other reasons why disability ministries are essential, and to me, emphasize the church's moral obligation. Including individuals with disabilities in the church help foster friendships and other supportive relationships. Churches that actively manage a disability ministry can play an instrumental role in raising awareness and being an advocate for individuals with disabilities and their families. Families of children with disabilities have a need, just like other families, to serve their church and their community, and having a safe place where their children are taken care of allow them the opportunity to give back. And supporting young people with disabilities and their families contribute to them experiencing a high quality of life. The solution is simple yet complicated at the same time. In her book, Leading a Special Needs Ministry, Lee makes a bold statement by saying that a leader of a disability ministry does not need a qualification in special education or related fields. She even proved her point by sharing that she is a certified public accountant and in a previous life worked for an accounting firm. Does a qualification help? Absolutely. But with the right amount of passion and commitment, anyone can lead a disability ministry. Lee shared a few more simple suggestions to help the church, big or small, be a more welcoming environment without having an organized ministry, including providing special need parking spots, enlist a host team to welcome first-time visitors, train greeters, and arrange for buddies in the Sunday school classroom. We know, however, that it is not always this simple. Complicated problems require more thoughtful solutions. I would venture to say challenges that churches have might not be all that different from challenges experienced by the education system, especially related to the bureaucratic nature of decision-making when implementing changes, as well as the commitment required from leadership to successfully implement these changes. There are many thoughtful solutions that have been created and made available through multiple articles, but I would like to focus on two solutions. One, drawing from the learnings from the education system, professional development should be a key solution to help churches and church leaders appreciate the need and the value of a disability ministry. The second is twofold. Create opportunities or forums to build meaningful relationships with churches in the area so that churches feel comfortable in accepting resources from one another. I have not come across leaders from disability ministries who are not excited and more than willing to share their resources with others. I will close out with these thoughts. In preparation for this project, I created what I call the Disability Ministry Survey and launched this survey several weeks ago to try and capture data on the prevalence of disability ministries that could be worth analyzing. The survey started with a simple yes/no question: does your church have a disability ministry? Followed by a few more follow-up questions based on the survey users' answer to the yes/no question. I very unscientifically, randomly searched for and selected churches in the greater Kansas City area to whom I sent my survey. I also requested help from Key Ministry, a nationwide leader in disability ministry research and training, and they offered to place a link to my survey in a newsletter that they release periodically. This is how it turned out. Over 4,000 deliveries of the newsletter went out. The newsletter was opened almost 1,500 times, and 991 of those were unique opens. 11 readers clicked on the survey link, and I received 9 completed surveys. That was disappointing, to say the least. I didn't receive any surveys from churches who didn't have a disability ministry, which render this data not useful for my purposes, apart from the fact that I received only 9 completed surveys. I will, however, draw this conclusion from the survey results. The mere fact that churches who do not have disability ministries were unwilling to complete the survey supports the suggested solution of building meaningful relationships with area churches to promote the creation of more disability ministries, and therefore have an increased number of churches who provide services for children with disabilities and their families. Thank you for your time.